Born from tribes as diverse as the colors of the rainbow, from the sweeping dunes of the Sahara to the dense jungles of the Congo, warriors defend their lands, protect their people, and etch their names upon the tapestry of legends. Anyways, here are the warriors of Africa. Like, subscribe, and share please to help us. Thanks and enjoy. With spirits as fierce as the lion's roar, and hearts as unyielding as the mighty baobab tree, these warriors embody the epitome of courage, strength, and ancestral wisdom. This can be said about Shaka, who expanded a community into an empire with innovative war tactics while improving the technology of his weapons. He increased the size of shields and popularized the shortening of the spears into ikwas. His favorite technique on the battlefield was the bullhorn formation, which resembled a horn formation with the chest ramming head-on into opposing armies, while flanks surrounded the enemy. Driven by madness after the death of his mother, Shaka would turn into a despot, before being assassinated by his brothers. At least Shaka Zulu was expanding in the south of Africa, unlike Hannibal of Carthage, who took his unwavering determination to challenge the might of Rome. Born in the heart of North Africa, Hannibal led his armies across treacherous terrains from the icy peaks of the Alps to the blood-soaked fields of Cannae. This was because his father made him swear to never be friends with Rome after the loss of the First Punic War. Hannibal became such a nuisance to Rome by defeating many battalions. However, after years of fighting, Hannibal eventually retreated back to Carthage as it was attacked by Rome. He lost at the Battle of Zama when his war elephants were nullified and his cavalry flanks were destroyed. After fleeing into exile, it is unknown how and when he died. Some say he injured himself and died from sickness, while others say he poisoned himself after being surrounded by Roman soldiers. However, while Hannibal left his country to fight the might of Rome, another warrior protected her lands from Arab invasion. Dia, also known as Kahina, was a legendary warrior queen of the Berber people during the 7th century who resisted the Muslim conquest of the Maghreb. An Arab general was sweeping through North Africa and was looking for a fight, which led him right towards Kahina. He tried to run over her empire, but he was soundly defeated at the Battle of Mesquiana. The general fled for a few years before coming back for another round, in which this time he won in a fierce battle. She died in that battle by a well, still around today. As Dia eventually lost her throne, another warrior queen was able to repel invasion from Rome. Amman Ras was a courageous queen of the ancient kingdom of Kush, located in present-day Sudan during the 1st century BCE. One of her notable achievements was the victorious Battle of Primis, where she and her forces successfully attacked and captured the Roman garrison at Primis. During her wars, she lost an eye, a husband, and a child to battle. She even captured the bronze statue head of her enemy and kept it beneath the steps of a temple. Amman Ras was successful in holding off Rome from taking over the kingdom of Kush. However, in West Africa, Samuri was a modern warrior who exchanged himself for his captured mother at an early age. After 7 years, he created his own army and even led a war in which he defeated 2 kings in a single day. As time went on, he battled against French colonization of the region. He pushed back the French army as much as he could, while being aided by the British government. Against larger and more equipped forces, Samuri deployed the maneuver warfare, which aims to destabilize enemies by rapid movements on the battlefield. Eventually, he lost ground to France, while losing aid from England. After his defeat, he was exiled to Gabon and died from pneumonia. Samuri fought against the French, but early in Angola, Inzinga of Ndongo and Matamba spent most of her rule battling the invading Portuguese. Receiving military training as a child, Inzinga would be ruler after her brother died. However, she would rule during the expansion of the slave trade. She allied herself with other warlords and the Dutch against the Portuguese. Eventually, the Dutch left Angola and battles raged against the Portuguese until an eventual peace treaty was signed. The effects of war affected Inzinga and the land of Ndongo. While Inzinga battled and eventually protected the land from Portuguese invasion, a man who was most likely from Mozambique would find himself in feudal Japan, becoming the only African samurai in history. He caught the eye of the most powerful daimyo in Kyoto, who thought the man's black skin was painted on. The daimyo asked for his skin to be scrubbed and was surprised it was not ink. The African was therefore named Yasuke and fought for the warlord until he was betrayed by one of his warlord's generals. We have the full story about this on our channel. The link is in the top right. Yasuke was stripped of his samurai title but was not killed because his captor deemed him less than an animal. Yasuke was not the only African fighting on foreign soil. Malika, a man born in Ethiopia, was captured as a slave and taken to India, where he was bought by the ruler of the Amman Ras Sultanate. He eventually became a free man and a de facto leader of the Ahmadnagar and led numerous successful military campaigns against Mughal forces. He employed guerrilla tactics like hit-and-run attacks while making use of a cavalry force. Back to the continent, another warrior was specialized in utilizing the cavalry. Queen Amina of Zazzau became queen in 1576 after her brother's death. Raised in favor of her grandfather, Amina learnt military tactics and political diplomacy at a very early age. She embarked on a 34-year military campaign with the intent of expanding the Zazzau Empire. It is said that Amina captured a male suitor in every town she went through and beheaded them by sunrise after having sexy time with them. She also had walls built to fortify her kingdom, walls that still stand today. While Amina had to wait for her brother's death before she became ruler, Ezana of Aksum, on the other hand, succeeded his father when he was a child. However, his mother served as a regent until he was mature enough to rule. He was successful in his military campaigns as he subjugated many kingdoms by the Red Sea and even conquered the great kingdom of Kush. The major difference between Ezana and other conquerors is that he is described as a kind king, one that did not enslave other conquered kingdoms but aimed to make them prosperous and wealthy additions to his lands. Legend has it that Ezana fell fighting in western Ethiopia and his body was taken back to Tigray, where it remained in a monolithic rock-hewn church, which was then dedicated to him. Ezana lived years before Emperor Menelik II, the founder of modern-day Ethiopia and the man that led Ethiopia to defeat Italy in the First Italo-Ethiopian War. The Ethiopians were woefully underestimated, which was to their advantage. Menelik gathered forces from other regions of Ethiopia, rubbed shoulders with Russia, and layered his attacks against the Italian forces with flanking and ambushes. Because of this battle, Ethiopia was never colonized. Menelik fought fiercely to protect his nation from invaders. However, another warrior king seemed thirsty for war, as Thutmose III, named after an Egyptian god, embarked on 16 military campaigns in 20 years. With this kind of action, the pharaoh conquered over 350 cities, many thanks to revolutionary developments in military technology. He documented his battles in which he led his army as far as Syria. He is the father of the Egyptian Navy and is widely considered one of the greatest warriors, military commanders, and strategists of all time. Thutmose was born a royal, but Ramses II, who ruled 200 years later, was born a civilian. However, his grandfather was selected as a pharaoh, and as time went on, Ramses became king before the age of 30. He spent the beginning of his ruling time repossessing lands lost to the Nubians and the Hittites. He would go on to spend the rest of his years on military campaigns, employing psychological warfare, like displaying his captured enemy leaders to intimidate others. He also used ships in battles, loading them with archers and spearmen, and would occasionally use the same ships as battering rams against his foes. There was a time one of his enemies accused Ramses of harboring a traitor. Ramses denied this, and the two nations almost came to blows. However, it was settled with the first documented peace treaty in history. Ramses had over 100,000 men in his army. However, in Benin, Behanzin, also known as the Shaka king, had his own army of over 15,000 people. The difference though is Behanzin had the Dahomey Amazons in his army, an elite all-women regiment known to be fierce in battle. Behanzin utilized the Amazons in sieges. These women perfected the art of intimidation. Initially, the Amazons were used to fill up the main army, but they eventually became fully integrated. Behanzin utilized tactics such as covering fire, frontal attacks, and flanking movements, even though he did not have a cavalry or navy division. He would take a secondary position to the field commander on the battlefield to prevent punishment from any evil spirits. Behanzin was a thorn in the aspirations of France during colonization. However, Behanzin would be captured and exiled to Algeria. Behanzin fought against the French when they threatened his kingdom. However, to the west, Ya Asantewa was drawn into a war when the British army exiled her grandson and demanded for the golden stool, the royal throne of the Asante. This led to a secret meeting within the Asante government, a meeting in which Ya gave a passionate speech about the pride of the Ashanti. She even fired a gun into the air to display resistance. She was nominated by the regional kings to lead a rebellion against England. Ya led an army of about 5,000 to a fort in Kumasi, where they blocked food supplies, cut telegraph wires, and sniped at the opposing enemy. The opposing army narrowly escaped and were eventually able to quell the rebellion. Ya Asantewa was exiled to Seychelles, where she eventually died. As Ya Asantewa got involved into a war at a later stage of her life, the same cannot be said about Bear Bure, who was nicknamed Kabal, the one who never tires of war. His initial battles were against tribal leaders who stood against his desire to instill Islamic and local practices in the northern Sierra Leone region. After winning many wars, he became the chief of northern Sierra Leone, which pitted him against the English settlers. He was always wary about the British government, and it came to a boil when the government required the people of Sierra Leone to pay taxes. Bear was completely against paying taxes and attempted to expel the British government from Sierra Leone. As a result, the government placed a £100 bounty on Bear, who in return placed a £500 bounty on the government. Bear engaged in rebellion against the government for 9 months. He really only surrendered because the British government implemented a scorched earth tactic, which cut off Bear's supplies. He was very averse in guerrilla tactics, such as hit and run, implementing decoys and using the terrain to his advantage. Bere died of natural causes. However, another warrior from the island of Madagascar did not live a quiet sunset of his life after feeling the effects of a warrior lifestyle. Radama I had a taste of the battlefield earlier in life under the supervision of his father. However, upon his father's death, Radama swore to expand the Marina Kingdom, which he did by adopting European military tactics and technology, including firearms, artillery, and a cavalry. At the time of his death, which was most likely due to depression or alcoholism, Radama had united 2/3 of Madagascar under his rule. 45 years after Radama's death, another warrior from present-day South Africa would be the leader of one of the most decisive victories in a battle against British forces. Shortly after Britain had invaded Zululand, Cetshwayo led 20,000 warriors armed with ikhwas and some rifles to ambush the opposing army. He won the battle with deception and attrition. He had a chance to completely annihilate the remainder of the army in Natal, but he refused, looking to help create a peace treaty between the two armies. This ultimately backfired, and Cetshwayo would eventually be captured 5 months later. With the dawn of independence and political reforms, the traditional sense of warfare evolved. As societies progressed and warfare evolved, so too did the perception of warriors. With the advent of professional armies, the emphasis shifted from individual warriors to organized military forces. However, the warrior spirit still lived on in those who fought oppression in the latter history of Africa. Let us know of other African warriors missed in this video. Thanks for watching. Will we see you in the next one?